Yes, today is exactly the year 1923, when money was worth less than toilet paper, and now you have $1 billion in your pocket. The banknotes don't fit in your wallet, your pockets, or even your bag. You'll need a huge wooden wheelbarrow to carry them. When you step out onto the street, you expect people to look at you with envy, fear, or respect, don't you? After all, mathematically speaking, you're a billionaire. You have more zeros than most people in the world could even imagine. But no one on the street even glances your way. No one even tries to steal the fortune in that wheelbarrow. Because with all that money piled up like a mountain in that wheelbarrow, you can only buy half a loaf of stale bread. That is, if you're lucky, and prices don't go up again before you reach the bakery. The year is 1923. Germany, one of the world's largest and most disciplined industrial giants, drowning in an ocean made up of green pieces of paper he printed with his own hands. We are heading toward that dark year when wealth, numbers, and mathematics lost all meaning, and a lifetime of labor was reduced to nothing more than a handful of ashes. This is the story of the most terrifying financial illusion in history, in which money became less valuable than toilet paper. No disaster in history falls from the sky all at once. Everything happens in those air-conditioned rooms. It begins with the rational decisions made by men in suits sitting around luxurious tables. World War I had ended, Germany had been defeated, and the Treaty of Versailles had imposed an enormous reparations burden that was impossible to pay. There was no gold in the state treasury to pay for this. French troops had occupied the Ruhr industrial region, the heart of Germany. It had seized control of the mines and factories. The workers halted production and went on a massive strike. The government was backed into a corner. No production, no gold, no taxes. The workers had to be paid. And those bureaucrats in black suits sitting to the right of the table discovered the deadliest, easiest, and sweetest poison in history. Since we don't have any money, why don't we just print more? The printing presses started running. First for 8 hours a day, then 12 hours, and finally 24 hours non-stop. At first, everything seemed perfect. He received his salary right on time that month, went to the bakery, bought his bread. He even thought about how cleverly the government had navigated this crisis. But the economy is like gravity. You can't break its rules. The economy is a massive machine. And if you put in fake fuel that the engine isn't designed to handle, the engine will eventually catch fire. As the government paid off its debts, more money entered the market. As more money entered the market, the purchasing power of money eroded. And that deadly cycle, that dark mathematical vortex, has now turned into an unstoppable monster. In January, a loaf of bread cost 250 marks. Just a few months later, in July, it cost 10,000 marks. By the time November rolled around, things had gone completely out of control. That same loaf of bread cost exactly 200 billion marks. Imagine you walk into an ordinary cafe. You order a coffee. It costs 5,000 marks. You sip your coffee and flip through your newspaper. 5 minutes later, when you set the cup down on the table, the waiter comes over and asks you for 8,000 marks. You object. The waiter calmly points to the blackboard on the wall, because while you were drinking that coffee, printing presses in the background churned out millions of new banknotes, and the value of your money plummeted once again. People have started collecting their pay not with wallets, but with huge laundry baskets and suitcases twice a day. At lunchtime, as the bell rings in the factories, hundreds of workers rush out. He was throwing bundles of bills out the windows to his wives so they could clear the shelves at the market before nightfall. Money had completely lost its original purpose. It was no longer a store of value, but a block of ice that melted and burned you every second you held it. The situation became so dire that hospitals were overflowing with patients suffering from a new psychological disorder called zero syndrome. People would close their eyes and see nothing but zeros. Millions of people, whose brains have been overwhelmed by doing math, have turned into mathematical zombies wandering the streets, muttering to themselves. The logic of the system had now completely collapsed. The physical cost of the paper, the ink on it, and the printing labor had become more valuable than the billions printed on it. When the harshest days of winter arrived, our chubby character went to the market to buy firewood to light the stove. But when he picked up the bundles of bills he had to give the vendor to buy an armful of firewood, he realized a terrible and painful truth. Mothers were lighting their stoves in the kitchen with money, while children were playing in the streets, building towers out of stacks of marks worth billions, just like Legos. Money was now no different from the dirty scraps of paper caught on the brooms of the street sweepers. But the real collapse occurred not in people's wallets, but in their morals. Imagine that you've worked your whole life, breaking a sweat, followed the rules, set aside a little money every month, and trusted the government. That massive retirement fund of yours, that huge sum in the bank, it vanished overnight. In contrast, savvy speculators, those who took on massive debts to buy factories and real estate. Thanks to hyperinflation, they paid off all their debts for the price of a cup of coffee and became kings. The Weimar hyperinflation was resolved, on paper, mathematically, at the end of 1923 with the introduction of a new currency called the Rentenmark and the forced shutdown of the printing presses. But the profound psychological devastation it caused could never, ever be repaired. The middle class, the backbone of society, was completely wiped out. The faith in the system held by millions of people who had followed the rules their entire lives was completely shattered. And the fact that historians still agree on today is this: the anger and distrust that had built up in the hearts of those helpless people who, in 1923, were trying to buy bread with handcarts on the streets. It was the greatest seed of that dark political radicalization that would set the world ablaze years later. Take a good look at the bill in your wallet or those digital numbers in your banking app today. They aren't physical assets. They're just abstract promises the government has made to you. An illusion. And history proved to us all too painfully in 1923 that when those who press the print button in those air-conditioned rooms find themselves cornered, that promise loses all meaning. The ghosts of that year, when money was worth less than toilet paper, still whisper to us today. The system always manages to save itself in the end. As for the bill, it's always the ones pushing that wheelbarrow who end up paying it.